Joining us now, Florida Congresswoman Cammack back with us. Your reaction to Cubans in over 32 cities taking to the streets in retaliation against the communist regime, chanting freedom, down with communism. They're carrying the American flag, too. They're impoverished. They're suffering. They want an end to communism. Your thoughts?
Well, I can tell you of the 2 million plus Cuban Americans that call the United States home these days, over 60% of them call Florida home. So as a Floridian, I stand in solidarity with those that have bravely taken to the streets, protesting peacefully, carrying the American flag, calling for freedom. And the notion that the Biden administration has said that this was in protest to COVID just again shows that they are so out of touch with not just Americans, but people all around the world and those striving for our most fundamental basic right of freedom. And I just, like I said, I cannot say enough about the bravery of those that have taken to the streets protesting this communist regime. And it's eerily quiet coming out of the AOC and Squad camp, as well as Bernie Sanders, which I find a little bit confusing that she's not even said a word about the protests that are taking place in Cuba or across the country.
Congresswoman, we've heard from people in Venezuela and we've heard from people who've fled Cuba that when there is silence on the atrocities committed by these communist regimes, where they're literally disappearing people, that gives agency to the communist dictators to do more. Is that your take? Is that true?
Absolutely. I mean, you think about what is happening in places like Cuba and Venezuela, where you have food scarcity, you have medical supplies that are in scarce demand and supply. You have tremendous violations of human rights. And the United States, under the Biden administration, has been tremendously quiet and in fact silent. And I think, again, it points to a bigger issue of this administration who has a problem with words. They couldn't muster up enough courage to say crisis when it came to our open, porous borders in the southwestern region of the United States. And now they're having a problem saying communist, which is in fact what the Cuban government is, a communist repressive regime that has stolen the future of so many Cubans and has caused many to flee, causing tremendous pain and suffering to many families who have fled their country, their homeland, at great risk and peril to themselves and their children. And when you talk about the response coming out, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, the president the president did put out a statement saying he supports the clarion call for freedom inside Cuba and relief from what's going on of decades of repression and economic suffering. The president has kept former President Trump's, sanctions on Cuba and the embargo there. Now we've got CNN blaming Trump for that. We've got the New York Times and messaging saying, freedom is an anti-government slogan. Your concerns about how the media is misreporting and giving misinformation on what's going on in Cuba?
Well, I think that the polling that came out here recently that talks about how the majority of Americans believe that the media has become really an enemy of the people in promoting fake news and this notion that freedom is now an anti-government calling. I appreciate that the left is trying to twist definitions, very basic definitions of human rights as an anti-government ploy, but that's just nonsense. And when you look at the work and reporting from CNN and MSNBC, they're saying that the communist regime that has really done horrific things against humans and really, like I said, stolen the future, stolen the lives of so many Cubans. And you think about them promoting this notion of the Biden administration going door to door for a vaccine program, engaging in gun grabs. These are all things that communist or socialist regimes engage in, and they've encouraged it. So it's no surprise to me that outlets like CNN or MSNBC are willing to promote and do the bidding of these socialist regimes that are hell-bent on controlling individuals and thinking that government knows best. We in America, as Americans, we know that we are capable of making the best decisions for ourselves and our families at the most basic levels. And we don't need an overbearing, overreaching government to do that for us, which is why, again, I'm so proud for so many standing up and fighting for that most basic human right, freedom.
Yeah, we've got problems now, a chain reaction being set off in Venezuela, where Juan Guaido was being threatened with arrest. They showed up with machine guns at his residential building. His number two in his opposition party has been arrested. Word is he's been thrown into a prison known for torture inside Caracas. We know that there are protests breaking out in Miami, and also we're hearing in Cuba they're starting to disappear people. Your word on, is there enough? Do the American people know enough about what exactly communist Cuba does to its people?
I think there's a second generation of Cuban Americans that have started to lean a little bit left and maybe romanticize the notion of what a socialist dictatorship looks like. And I think that's particularly dangerous. So now more than ever, we've got to tell the stories of that first generation of Cubans who came here and fled that regime.
Congresswoman Kat Cammack, thank you so much for joining us. We're coming up against a hard break. It's good to see you.